Okay, today is May 28, 2014, a Wednesday morning. We are interviewing Matthew A. Hutmacher at the Adams County Courthouse in Quincy, Adams County, Illinois. Mr. Hutmacher is 73 years of age, having been born on December 21, 1940. My name is Scott Larson, and I'm the interviewer and the camera operator. And I am an attorney in Quincy, Illinois, along with Matt Hutmacher, and that is our relationship. Starting off, Matt, could you state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
The Vietnam War, and in the 126 Supply and Service Company, and subsequently First Brigade of the First Signal Brigade in Long Bin area.
Okay. When you were discharged, what was your rank?
Well, the first, I never did get discharged the first time because I was an officer. Enlisted were automatically discharged if they wanted it. So I stayed for 4 or 5 years, and then I went back in '78 and was there till '97.
And
it was colonel was my final rank. Yeah.
So, through '97, were you in the reserves? You were active duty?
In the National Guard, yes, and only active duty 15 days in the year was required to be in the Guard. You have to have those 15 days, and then of course you had weekend drills too.
Right. And so
it would be 2 days for those. We were active, but in a different status than when we were on our 15 days. That's for the federal government primarily, I think.
So involved in the military for quite some time in the reserves or guard after that.
Yes. Oh. You have it.
When you were in the Vietnam War, you indicated where you were located at. What base was that?
It was Long Bin. It was about 30 miles, I believe, north of Saigon. And I did spend a week at Saigon on working there. So I spent that time there. And then I finished, and when the flag of our guard unit was to go back to the mainland, then everybody throughout who had come with the 126 was tracked down, and then they all went back as a unit. And of course, I was, since I had started in that before then.
While you indicated that there was a point in time, even a couple of days, that you were on a different assignment. When you went to Vietnam, what was your assignment? What were you doing?
In charge of a cable yard for the First Signal Brigade.
Okay.
And that was principally it. I was a quartermaster officer, and it was difficult for them to find a job for me. And that was what they settled on.
Okay. You indicated then you had a couple of days doing a different assignment. What was that?
Oh, that was just waiting to be assigned. And then the Saigon assignment was to go to Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base and see that everything was moved up to Long Bin. And that took about a week.
Okay. As far as being there in Vietnam, did you, I guess, were you somebody that was interested in the culture? Did you get or do in your time that you had available to you get sort of immersed in the culture there?
Long Binh was about 60,000 troops, and we were 30 miles away from Saigon. There were times that we could go, but principally, no, except I did bring a few things that I've got some photographs of things that I bought on Tudu Street down in Saigon. Very inexpensive, and I call it my art collection.
Did you have opportunities to go to Saigon on a regular basis, or?
Look at scrounging or looking for material.
Okay.
You'd go anywhere if you had to, but that was not that frequently. I probably was down there 8, 12, 13 times over the time I was there.
Interesting. So is your job duties required you to travel around quite a bit to locate materials?
That was, the colonel was the best at that. Obviously, he had a lot better rank, but I could scrounge a few things anyway.
Barter?
That would be a better way to say it, I guess.
Interesting. So your time in Vietnam certainly helped you, I would say, in negotiating.
Yes.
You indicated your artwork. Was there anything else that you brought back with you, sort of a memento?
There's a tradition over there when gentlemen get a job I don't know if it's for the government or just they always bring a gift. And I didn't know what this was, and it's a boat that they had. There were 3 of them, and they didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Vietnamese, but I knew, and they wanted that, and so I went ahead and I took that boat and I sent it home, and I have it in my office as a memento.
Very nice. When you went to Saigon, obviously difficulty, language barrier, and trying to talk to others.
Right. There were a tremendous number of Americans there, and the Vietnamese they picked up very well. They were well educated people that were in Saigon.
Interesting. As far as your assignment, I guess, did you see actual combat action where you were located?
No, there were occasional rockets coming into the base, but no, I didn't have any.
Okay. Then, as well as no other action, anybody involved in the base? I mean, other than you said, sort of an errant, ammunition.
Well, the rockets, they sometimes would come in at night and they'd send a large number, but Long Binh was a big base. When you got 60,000 troops in one location, that's pretty major.
Sure.
And so, we would know it was happening, but and at first they have, I don't know how everybody did it, but after a night or two going to a shelter when the rockets came in, it made no sense to me. It's just as safe if I just sleep, and I did, so I never had to get up.
Sort of become accustomed to it a little bit?
Right, yeah, it's just going to happen, it's fate.
Interesting. As far as your service while in Vietnam, what awards or medals did you receive?
Oh, the Vietnam medal, campaign medal, and service medal from Vietnam. Then our National Defense Medal, which is I was wearing beforehand. And then over the years, you have other medals, but those are the most important ones, I think. Yeah.
Sure. As far as being over where you're located, like you indicated, those very large base, 60,000 people, how are you able to get along with other officers, and then other soldiers at the base?
Very fine. And I think one thing that helped a lot was because I was one of the oldest second lieutenants at starting out. I was 25. And there's so many young people there, so much younger. It's much harder, I think.
So you were, yeah, you were the old man of the unit, it
So
seems
to
like.
speak.
Um,
Yeah.
you indicated at the time that I find interesting, you had already gone through law school at the time.
Right.
So, as you indicated, older than a lot of people that were serving over there. Um, were you drafted, or did you?
Good question. November of or August of '65, I finished the bar exam, and then after that, I called that very day the draft board, and they said, "Well, Matt, no, Albert," they would say, "we're looking at your file now." And I said, "I guess that means I better do something." And she laughed, says, "Yes, and soon." So I was already pre-listed with the National Guard, which they put up with me for a year or two, And then I went down immediately and signed and took the oath, and then waited for orders, which fortunately for me came very swiftly. November, I was down at Fort Leonard Wood, so I was very fortunate that way. That you don't want to be stuck waiting for orders.
Sure, sure. So, you didn't even have an opportunity to look for a job or anything. You just finished law school, took the
I
bar.
had somebody that I had already said that they'd like to have me
Right.
join them, so they knew what my situation was, like almost everyone's situation
Sure, that's
at that
amazing.
time, right?
That's amazing. How did you get enrolled, or whatever you said, pre-selected?
In the Guard.
Hmm.
That changed. At first, it was always that way, that if you couldn't, they would let you sign, and then when the time came that you did want to go in, then you had to take a physical.
Okay.
So they're not going to pay for a physical for somebody that's not immediately going in. So I was on that list. But then when I came back from overseas, they had already said, no, we can't do it that way. And you could be on a list, but they had some other rules and regulations that frankly didn't involve me. So,
Okay. So would you have been pre-selected while you were in law school, or was that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure I was, because I couldn't take a chance of ending up in that situation.
Gotcha.
Be very costly.
Did you have any family members that were servicemen or women, or?
My uncles, two of them, let's see, Ernie Hollenstein and Dick Hollenstein and Bud or Lyle Hollenstein all served, and an uncle who was like, well, he wasn't an uncle, but not by blood, Wilbur Clare. And so all of them had, but I would not say it was much different than any, family. But in that one family, it was quite a few. Yeah.
So, I guess serving in the military was not something that you had on your agenda, so to speak, that you were going to do?
Well, I knew I would have to go,
Right.
and I knew, I mean, there's some things you need to do. And if I hadn't, I'd have felt bad.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
yep.
Excellent.
So that was, and my one uncle, he was in Indonesia, and in the Philippines. So he had a pretty tough time.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can
Never
understand.
talked about it though.
Did you ever try to talk to him about it, or just?
No, but I saw the results of malaria, and when I got overseas, first thing I did was take my malaria pill because I knew what would
Right.
happen otherwise, and I tried to get some of the others take the malaria pill. You don't know what you're facing, so I tell them if you get malaria, So
And did they listen to you?
I'll never know. For their sake, I hope so.
Oh, camera issue here. Just hold on to it. You're talking here with us today. Have you talked to other people about your military service?
Oh, sure. Our reunions, which are every 5 years, and then beyond that, we get together quite often in Quincy, and some of the guys from the surrounding areas come too, and we'll have dinner and just talk about what's current, what the state of everybody's health is, those sorts of things. So it's a really good group.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, as far as a reunion, is it something sort of unofficial, or do you participate in any activities, veterans activities?
Nothing that's scheduled. There are things that are done, but it's part of the group will do something, and they don't necessarily talk to the other side if they don't need them.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the way it goes, I think.
So you said every 5 years or so you get
Right,
together?
every 5. It's pretty reliable. The recent years, every 5 years.
How large of a group of people usually get together?
Oh boy, I'm trying to think. Say 60, but then you had, of course, wives and so on. Probably 100 or more that we had there. I'm sure they'll correct me when I next see them.
And where do you guys get together at?
Okay. It was once it was out. In fact, the last time was at a golf course out in the north part of town, and then lately, when we get together for just an informal meeting, why it's at 10th and Ohio.
Okay, so stick with a local group.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do anything sort of on a larger scale for this, state, nationally, or anything like that?
No, not. There, almost everyone is in either the Legion or the VFW or some other military related group, let's say.
And are you in both of those? Or?
No, when I came back, I went with the American Legion, and so that's the one I'm in.
We kind of skipped ahead. If I kind of go back to during your service, did you keep any kind of diary or send letters and correspondence back home?
Sent letters home, but I don't know. I never, unfortunately, they were misplaced or lost or something. So
interesting now how much the servicemen are able to communicate with family members.
Now that we could do because of cooperation. The ham was, and I guess still is, a big organization. So in the late night, as I recall, we always had a phone there. And so they would set it up at a preordained time, and then that phone would ring, and you talk to your wife or your girlfriend or whoever. If it was important, you just did it through the ham people. They were a major force.
So you
So
did have
I
the
could
opportunity.
communicate. We had I think it was direct dial from Long Bend up at about 400 miles north of there to Chulai, which was the home of the 126 then.
Wow.
See, so you just pick up a phone like that, and unless there's interference, well, you're in good shape.
Oh, that's great. So you're able to communicate weekly or bi-weekly?
Just anything comes up, or if I want some information, can't get it, why I call up there and see if they know.
That's great.
By the way, they're known as that's a different unit when you're under the federal government. In other words, they wore different. They had the same uniform, but you have different patches and so on because you're in a different group. You're no longer part of the Illinois Guard. You're discharged from them, and then you take you already have taken that oath, but you sign up, and then you're over with the federal government.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Very nice. As far as I guess living at the base, how was that? Did you have good,
wonderful food?
Wonderful food. You're on the base as far as, I guess, what did you live in? What were your accommodations there?
I have a picture of it. I was upstairs on a typical, all I can say is a typical World War II accommodation. It was, I think, based somewhat on that. Very simple, but it was very nice.
Great.
It was good.
Great.
In fact, one time, the closest I probably came to combat was when I was walking to have breakfast one morning, and here is a rocket sitting there. And I thought, I ought to get out of here. And then I saw that everybody else was walking by, and they weren't worried, so I did. Now, I don't know if they knew there was nothing in it or what, but I thought, well.
That'll wake you up in the morning.
Yeah. And everybody just walks by, and I thought, well, let me remember that.
Become a little desensitized, huh? That's great. We touched upon it a little bit. You were able to travel and go to Saigon. What other things did you do for entertainment when you weren't?
Softball. They had all sorts of. You obviously could drink beer, pub-like, and then you would. Let's see. Then they had entertainment. They from the Philippines, from Australia. A lot of them getting started were there. And it was
so
very social.
Through the base, they
right.
had that. They had the entertainment through the base.
Yeah. Now, the one thing on that, there's one song, and I don't know the name of it, but everybody yelled and sang at the time to close the tavern, so to speak, and that was, let's see, how does that go? If it's the last thing I ever do, we got to get out of this place. If it's the last thing we do, that was universal. You go every beer hall, everywhere.
I know that song, absolutely. The Last Call.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a memorable experience you had. Is there anything else that you kind of have a lasting memory of something there, whether it's on recreation or
up at Chulai? See, I had 3 weeks there at the end, and that was because the president decided to take those that had been called up and find out where they are and bring them all home. So we were part of other units that were in Army reserves and so on. So that was going on. And
3 weeks of R&R, so to speak?
Well, standing down means there's nothing for you to do right now but be available. and that's what we were. So we played softball with the Marines. Obviously went out in the ocean. I can't swim, so I was a little careful, but I didn't mind it when I had that air mattress, so that was a
Use
lot of
that
fun.
as your flotation device, your surfboard.
Yeah. Now, probably the most weird thing that I had that was, I was having dinner or just maybe having a beer at one of the officers' clubs up in the mountains that are shown here somewhere, yeah. And you're on top of a knoll or a mound where we're above the surrounding terrain. And so everybody's 100 people or whatever, officers and so on, and everybody's talking. And then suddenly the aircraft start coming in, F-16s, and probably one of those hogs that carries all of the one the Army likes because it protects them so much. And they're dropping, and you see napalm just spread out over all of this greenery, a gigantic fireball that is just like that. And again, I'm a new guy in town, so I couldn't help but think, wow. And then you look to the left and right, it's going on all over. And here we are.
Oh my.
And it was surreal. It just felt weird,
So, I mean, you were close proximity to all that happening.
Yeah.
Oh my.
I'll never forget that.
Oh my. That's amazing.
Well, it was. It made a point.
Let's see, as far as you talked a little bit about that 3 weeks of standing down, how is that ultimately after the end of the 3 weeks you were discharged? Or I guess I'm using an improper term, but
back to the Guard.
Yes.
They didn't even do that. They had like 2 weeks when you're back at an Army base, and they try to get you to stay in. Well, I was going to stay in anyway, but many just said no, but you had to listen to it, and they had to check you out physically. And then after 2 weeks, I think it was, down at Fort Leonard Wood, which was where they put us, we went back, and then they had a parade, and I may have some pictures of that.
Tell me about leaving
Vietnam. We were back, right.
Wow.
We would, I think, I'm not sure, but I think we had signed everything down at Fort Leonard Wood. I don't remember when I got back here I was to sign anything, so I guess that was
from Fort Leonard Wood you came back to Quincy?
Right.
Okay.
And we came back as, and I don't even remember if everybody came back as a unit, or some of the other guys that'll speak will probably have a better memory of it.
How was that transition after coming from Vietnam to here in Quincy?
It was wonderful. It was, well, and I had, Mary was not going to have the child yet, but she was getting very short on our child. Okay. So that was exciting too.
So you were married during your time over in Vietnam?
No. See, I didn't go over initially, and there were 4 officers that, 3 of us that didn't have enough weeks of training, and it's called the basic officers. And you have to do that in order to fulfill, even though you're getting paid, you're still not up to speed. And the Army, when they came and looked at records, they said, well, this won't do, he's got to go to school, he's got to go to school. So 3 of us, Beckman, Helmer and myself did have to go to school, and they sent us to Fort Lee, Virginia for 9 weeks. Yeah, and in Fort Lee, Virginia, which was a very, very nice assignment.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah. And then we were individual replacements at that status, and we had been working with another unit because everyone's going to be assigned somewhere, and I happened to be in the repair parts company for a while.
Excellent.
Yeah. And they were in different assignments still at Fort Carson.
Okay.
We were still there, and we're doing that in November, I think, and then they went over I think it was in August of '68.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't go over till March 1st of '9.
Okay. When you came back to Quincy, you indicated before you left you had talked to another attorney. Did you have a job when you came back, or when you came back to Quincy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the end of your service over there, you sort of finished up and came back to Quincy.
Right. That's in the immediate. The first thing I did was get back for a week or so in my office, and then I started campaigning for. They had signed. They thought I should do it. So anyway, I ended up running for the Constitutional Convention and the 58th District. So that took a lot of time too.
So that was right when you came back.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And you hadn't really had experience, I guess, as a practicing attorney at that point in time, had you?
Well, I had about 2 years when we got called up.
Okay.
So that again kind of was good because I was older. So
right, little experience. You talked about going to school and all of that, and you may have done things backwards a little bit. So you didn't have the opportunities that some have had with the GI Bill and the like. Is that correct?
Right. On the other hand, I had an Eisenhower, I think they called him Eisenhower Loan or something that was unbelievably good. It was either 2 or 3% interest in that day, which was even then was great. And if you went into the service, which I did, you didn't have to pay it back, and then it started again when you were out of the service. And so I've got no complaint coming.
Great.
But in hindsight, it would have been a little easier the other way.
As far as, you spent a number of years in the National Guard, in both the Guard as well as your time overseas. Did you develop close relationships, close friendships with people that last to this day? Or?
Well, yeah.
Excellent.
It's just a great. That's what makes it so difficult, and it's very difficult to leave.
I can understand.
Yeah, one thing that is very difficult is when it's your time to leave. And when I was there, I knew I wasn't leaving, but I could see how it was affecting those people that were leaving. They know that it'll never be the same for them. It's a practice for retirement because at some point they're going to retire. So they've got their jobs, but this will end. And it's just amazing what it does to people. Very hard emotionally for them to leave.
Because of the friendships they develop there? Absolutely.
Yeah. And you have, I don't know what to really call it, but you see the same people the same time, most of the time, but you only see them for 2 days a month, which is a long time and a short time. And so
Absolutely.
it seems like a kaleidoscope is going on in your life.
Sure.
You know, it just seems like yesterday, but it wasn't. It was 2 years ago. And then you get older, you do the same thing anyway. So,
Well, that's it. That's interesting. So
yeah,
you develop these relationships, but you didn't spend a significant amount of time together in these
yeah,
short periods of time
yeah, that's true.
over a long. Yeah, very interesting. And then, other than uh, your activities now in veterans organizations, do you have ties or you have communication with some other individuals that may not live around the Quincy area that you served with?
I did. I haven't recently.
As far as your service, again, both
Mhm.
in Vietnam and the years that you served in the Guard, has anyone ever come up to you and thanked you for your service?
Yes, they. In fact, I had a client a long time ago that I knew from when he was in the service with me, but he was substantially older than me. And he said to me one day, "Well, I want to thank you for your service." And I thought, uh, what? And he said, yes. He said, now you're supposed to say that when you see somebody, and I know you've been in the service. So that's what I said. And then I began to see that that was what it was, a concept that I don't know who started it, but yeah. So I tried to remember to do
I
that.
was going to ask you, you do that yourself? You see individuals?
Sometimes, but not if it's somebody I see all the time,
Right.
I probably don't. But if it's someone I haven't seen for a while, then I may think to do that.
Well, we recently had Memorial Day. Is there anything special that you do for Memorial Day, or?
I haven't this year. A few years ago, I was up at Paloma. They have a really great uh, uh, something that you remember when you're up there. It's
Great.
very nice. And they have in fact, there was an article in the paper about it, the plaques that they have in the ground.
Oh, great. Oh,
Not marking graves, but a chance for people to do nice things for people. And
right.
very nice.
Great. I did see that. As far as your service that you have, um, what do you think? Does it change your perspective on your feelings of the military today?
Oh, yes. Uh, uh, Substantially.
Okay.
And it's, well, in any event, yes, I'd say
Okay.
substantially.
If you can recall, is your feeling about the military the same now as it was even before you started your service, do you think? Kind of tough question to ask, but
Well, I guess it is difficult to have, in spite of, it's very difficult when you have worked with people very closely, and then when there are a large number of changes that are being made, with which I think what a difficult situation it would be to be in the service today. Very difficult. So I guess that's the best answer I can give you.
absolutely. Did your service, obviously your service has impacted your life um, on a professional basis. Do you think that it's helped you be a better attorney, or has it made an impact that way?
I think it's yes, but I think one of the first things you learn in basic training, and maybe you've done it right all your life, but maybe you haven't, and that is when you're, how important it is that you trust one another. Uh, one time I left a $5 bill out by mistake, and $5 bill was still there at the end of the day. And this is when you were getting $88 a month. See, so so anybody could have taken that. So anyway, that's just one little incident, and you also you find I have no mechanical ability, and so they would always show me how to put the rifle back, and and that was difficult for me, but we got it done. And then I would work with them because they wanted some help with some other thing like English or whatever.
Sure.
And you just have trade-offs. And what you find is that's how an army is supposed to work.
Absolutely. Helping one another. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the answer, but is that the most positive thing that you took away from your experience? Is sort of
Loyalty, loyalty. That's probably the most predominant trait that I would say. Honesty. Yeah.
Is there a negative that you've taken away during your experience?
I think, yes. I think, yeah, definitely. But I don't want to comment on them.
And you may not have an opinion as far as how do you think that history of that era is being taught or depicted to school-age children or college-age children? Do you think?
Well, I think probably an opinion, but I'm not sure that I have the facts to really say. I have seen articles in the paper about how bad things have been construed and done and so on, but I haven't really read it. I didn't have to help with history because most kids, I think, like history, or
Sure.
maybe they don't today. I don't know.
Right. Do you think that, I guess, what's your opinion regarding your service during Vietnam as far as the general public? There's a lot of backlash, when military servicemen were returning home from Vietnam or not thanking them for their service just because of the conflict itself. Did you get any of that? Any sort of negative response when you came back?
None at all. And there are a couple of changes that I was there, the unit was there 68, 69. I was there only for like 5.5 months in 69. Those, you'll hear people talk about the good years. And then when you begin to get 70, 71, morale, things really were becoming bad.
Gotcha.
In the service. And I take that because my friends went through it. So I believe what they told me that they had. And we're not proud, when you have a wonderful parade, when you come home, it's kind of hard to, think that, gee, somebody's taking advantage of me or something. So, I've never experienced anything. And I'll bet you the same when the other guys from the 126, you'll probably get the same answer. You can tell me later if you do.
As far as the questions today. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to add today, or something that we may have missed that you would like to have preserved?
Could we take just a moment, or because that would be.
Okay, we are back recording with Matthew Hutmacher, continuing on his session. And again, this is Scott Larson interviewing. And the question is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to add today?
Yes, one, it seemed like a trivial thing, but I think it is kind of important, kind of the way the Army does things. And when I went down to basic training, I was out of shape. I sat and studied for the bar exam. It seemed like forever. And so I was totally out of shape. And that doesn't go unnoted when you arrive. I think I was 200 pounds, which was substantially more than that. And so they have a way of doing things, and that is make anybody who's overweight a road guard. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, you're in charge of double timing it or getting there at the intersection to stop traffic. That's what your job is. And I said, well, then what? He said, then when the last one's there, then you run up and then that was, you'd be surprised what that'll do to you. So you lose weight, and then you get some that look like they haven't eaten enough meals, and suddenly they start packing it in. So that's how the Army gets what it wants. And then one other thing that they did was for breakfast, of course, everybody wants that breakfast, but to do that, you have to know and memorize your serial number, and you have to go once across the bars, monkey bars. And if you can do one, that's not good enough. If you get sent back to the back of the line, so you got to wait on breakfast. And if you can do both, then you can eat. Otherwise, you're going. And somehow people remember their serial number, and they, don't have so much trouble with monkey bars when they treat them that way. So anyway, I thought that was.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good question. Did that type of physical fitness and that regimen, did that continue and stick with you throughout your years? But
I was still in the Guard, and so that meant I had to go eat the food I loved the most with them in the summer. And so I had trouble with my weight. So,
well, I noticed
if I'm not in the Guard, I probably may have been better off.
Let yourself go. Let yourself go. Well, I know that you're a pretty fit guy, and you work out to this day. So, do you think that's probably come over from your service?
I think so.
And for the record, I note in your biographical form you are listed as Albert M. Hutmacher. I know you as Matt Hutmacher. Is there? How does the military know you? I guess.
Well, definitely Albert.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no. I signed up as Matthew A. And that was fine to sign. But when I went over to Springfield, then when you're well over half finished with OCS, a colonel walked in and said, now, if I told you that that 1/3 of you sitting there don't know or don't use your actual birth name. And I thought, oh my, I knew what was coming. And it came. And there were severe problems from people proving what their name was. And some of them just barely made it. So,
oh my.
Oh yeah, that can be bad thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when
That was a good question.
I started this, I said Matthew A. Hutmacher, but for sort of military purposes, Albert M. Hutmacher.
Mhm.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything further, I will conclude your interview.
And I want to thank you both for your assistance. Definitely.
This has been great. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you.